All right, so you're heading to Flint soon, and smartly requested we do a deep dive into these city council meeting minutes from August 12th, 2024. It's like getting the inside scoop right.
Absolutely. These minutes are a gold mine.
We've got the official minutes themselves, of course, plus a really interesting breakdown from that Minutes to Masterpieces podcast you like. And then, you know, your own notes with all your own questions.
It's going to be great to make you sound like a Flint local by the time you get there.
Exactly. Okay, so you specifically asked, is Flint still recovering from the water crisis? And what's the overall vibe in the city right now?
Which are great questions, by the way.
Really important ones when you're trying to get a feel for a place.
So should we just jump right into those? What do you think?
Let's tackle those head on.
Okay, head on. It is, to answer your first question, yes, Flint is definitely still recovering. The water crisis began in 2014, as you know, and the impact of that is still felt today. I mean, the Minutes to Masterpieces podcast highlighted that 80% of the lead pipes have actually been replaced.
Oh, wow, 80%. That's great.
It is. It's really significant progress.
Hmm.
But there are still supply chain issues that are causing these delays.
Wow, so even when you've got 80% replaced, it's still a really slow process.
Exactly. And that's something that comes up in the city council meeting minutes a lot.
Mm.
It's real, sense of how complex recovery can be.
Yeah, it's not just a matter of like flipping a switch and everything's back to normal, right?
Right. And that's really evident in how the city council is dealing with the remaining $50 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Oh, yeah, the ARPA funds.
Yeah, that's sparked quite a debate.
Well, yeah, I bet. It's like finding a bunch of cash in your old jeans. What do you do with it? Except this is a whole city we're talking about.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Because you've got that tension, right, between wanting to spend it on something fun and exciting, but then also, that responsible side that says maybe you should be paying down debt.
Totally. It's like short-term fun versus long-term stability. Except in Flint's case, it's not just your bank account. It's the entire city's future.
Exactly. And I think you really hit the nail on the head with that short-term versus long-term thing.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly the dilemma that's captured in these minutes.
And that connects to one of your other questions.
Right. You asked, how is Flint balancing short-term needs with long-term recovery?
Oh, yeah, I did ask that.
And honestly, the ARPA debate really sums up that whole tension perfectly.
Okay, so walk me through it. What are the main proposals that they're considering?
Sure. So there are two main camps that emerged. On one side, you've got this group that's really advocating for direct cash payments to residents.
Just like cut everyone a check.
Basically. They're talking about $500 per household.
Wow, $500. That's a decent chunk of change.
Right. And their argument is that it provides this immediate form of relief and that it would stimulate the local economy right, putting money right back into the hands of the people who need it most.
Yeah, it's like a much-needed boost for everyone, right? People would be spending money, local businesses would benefit.
Exactly. But this is where that long-term recovery side comes in.
Okay, I was wondering when that was going to come up.
It has to, right? Because some council members are worried about how sustainable that kind of measure really is. Like, will giving everyone $500 actually lead to lasting change? Or is it just a quick fix, a temporary Band-Aid?
So it's about more than just the immediate impact.
Right. And the minutes actually highlight some concerns about that. Like, what if people don't use the money wisely? Or what if there's no plan for what happens after that $500 runs out?
So it's about weighing the feel-good factor of that immediate help against the potential for something more long-lasting.
Exactly. And honestly, it's a tough call. It's easy to see both sides.
Definitely. So what's the other side of the debate saying? If they're not on board with the cash payments, what are they proposing?
So the second proposal is all about investing that money, but investing it in infrastructure and revitalization projects.
Okay, so instead of giving the money directly to people, they'd use it to improve the city itself.
You got it. Things like renovating parks, demolishing abandoned buildings.
Got it. So focusing on the things that improve the overall quality of life in Flint.
And hopefully attract more investment in the long run.
Ah, so it's about laying the groundwork for a stronger future.
Precisely. They're thinking long-term with this one, trying to shift the narrative from struggle to renewal.
It's like they're trying to create that up-and-coming feel. Instead of focusing on the past, it's about building something new.
Exactly. But of course, there are also criticisms of this approach.
I was wondering when we'd get to those.
Well, some people argue that while these projects are important, they don't help people who are struggling right now.
That's true. A renovated park doesn't put food on the table today.
Exactly. It's that classic dilemma. Do you address the symptoms or do you focus on the root causes?
It's a tough one. And it kind of feels like there's no easy answer, which I guess is why they're having this debate in the first place.
Exactly. And that's what makes these minutes so fascinating to me. It's not just about the decisions themselves, it's about the conversations and the dilemmas that those decisions represent.
It's like a window into how the city is trying to move forward.
And those questions about short-term needs versus long-term vision, those are going to be important for you too as you explore Flint.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like what feels more impactful? Seeing a brand new park or knowing that families were able to get some direct aid when they needed it most?
It's a question with no easy answers.
Definitely not. And it's
Mm.
something I'm going to be thinking about a lot as I learn more about Flint.
I think that's a great approach to take because it's a question that's at the heart of Flint's recovery journey.
It really is. And it's something that I'm sure we'll be coming back to as we continue this deep dive.
Absolutely. There's so much more to unpack.
Well, then let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and dig into even more of these minutes.
Sounds good to me.
It's amazing how this one debate can open up so many bigger questions, right? It's not just about the money. It's about priorities and vision for the whole city.
Exactly. And those questions aren't just happening in the council meetings either. You'll hear them echoed all over the city, especially in the public comment period of that city council meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You actually highlighted that whole section in your notes. You were really interested in what the residents themselves had to say, right?
Right, because it's one thing to hear from the council members, but the public comment period, that's where you get those raw, unfiltered perspectives. The people directly affected by these decisions.
Totally. So what were some of the standout moments from that section? Anything that really jumped out at you?
Well, you can tell from the minutes that the ARPA debate was still on everyone's minds. Some residents gave these really impassioned pleas for the direct cash payments, sharing stories about their own struggles, making ends meet.
Wow. So you could really hear the urgency in their voices.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you had people echoing what some of the council members were saying, urging them to think long term, to invest in things that would have a lasting impact.
It's a good reminder that these aren't just like abstract policy debates, right? These decisions have a real impact on people's lives.
For sure. And there was this one comment that I thought you'd find interesting, especially given your interest in the whole local business scene.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
So there was this young woman, she runs a catering business, and she spoke really passionately about the need for more support for small businesses like hers.
Yeah, makes sense. Small businesses are really the backbone of any local economy.
Exactly. And she made this point that investing in entrepreneurship would create a ripple effect, creating more jobs,
Yeah.
revitalizing neighborhoods.
It's that whole teach a man to fish philosophy, right?
Give people the tools they need to build something sustainable.
I love that. Okay, so that's small businesses.
Yeah.
What about my other favorite topic? Urban farming. Anything in there about that?
As a matter of fact, there was.
No way.
Yeah. A group of residents presented this really cool proposal for a community garden project.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I love a good community garden.
Right. And they want to build it on this vacant lot, talking about how it could provide fresh produce in an area that really lacks access to healthy food options.
That's fantastic. It's amazing how something as simple as a garden can really bring a community together.
Right. And they even talked about the community building aspect of it,
Mm.
like teaching people how to garden, giving them a sense of ownership over their neighborhood.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got small businesses, we've got community gardens. What else? What about the water crisis? Was there still a sense of tension or distrust when that came up?
Oh, definitely. You can practically hear it in the minutes,
Yeah.
like when the lead pipe replacement project is brought up. One council member whose district was hit especially hard by the crisis, they really grilled the city administrator about those delays, demanding a concrete timeline and more accountability.
Yeah, it makes sense that trust is still a major issue.
Absolutely. Because even though progress is being made, the trauma from that experience runs deep.
Right. It's not just about fixing the physical infrastructure. It's about rebuilding trust, addressing the emotional scars that were left behind.
Exactly.
Mm.
And that's what I think is so valuable about these deep dives we do. It's not just about summarizing a meeting, it's about understanding the context,
Mm-hmm.
the nuances, the things that might not be said out loud but are still shaping the conversation.
Totally. These minutes are like a crash course in Flint's civic life.
Exactly. And speaking of which, we haven't even talked about the personalities on the city council.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking that. Any big characters or interesting dynamics at play?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You can tell just from the way they're quoted in the minutes that each member brings their own style to the table. You've got the fiery advocate who's always pushing for change.
Gotta love those.
Right. And
Yeah.
then you've got the pragmatic negotiator, the one who's always looking for common ground.
Trying to keep everyone happy.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's even a bit of a class clown in the group.
Oh, no way. A jokester on the city council.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Injecting some much-needed humor into these sometimes tense discussions.
Well, hey, a little levity can go a long way, especially when you're talking about serious stuff like lead pipes and budgets.
For sure. And speaking of lighter moments, there was this really sweet one. It was during the discussion about that Reflections of Resilience mural project.
Oh, yeah. The one they're planning for the side of City Hall.
That's the one. So one of the council members, who's actually known for being pretty quiet, they suddenly shared this really moving story about their grandmother, who had lived through Flint's boom and bust years, you know. And they talked about how art was always her escape.
Oh, that's
It
beautiful.
was really touching. A reminder that even in the middle of all this serious business, there's still room for personal connection.
I love that story. Okay, you've convinced me I'm adding that mural to my list of things to see.
You should. It's going to be amazing.
I have a feeling my whole trip is going to be full of these little moments that reveal something deeper about Flint.
I think you're right. And that's what makes these deep dives so rewarding. You never know what you're going to find buried in these documents. It's like uncovering hidden gems.
Totally. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
Anything else in those minutes that we haven't talked about yet? It's pretty incredible how these minutes capture, like, the heartbeat of a city, right?
It really is. Like, we've gone from these intense budget debates to stories about community gardens to personal reflections on resilience. And it's all within these pages of what you might think is a totally dry document.
Right, it's like proof that local government isn't just boring paperwork. It's about real people and their lives.
Exactly. It's where those big ideas about policy and stuff actually turn into concrete changes for people.
Speaking of concrete changes, you mentioned wanting to see signs of revitalization in Flint. Do these minutes give us any clues about what you might find when you get there?
Oh, for sure. There are a couple things that really stood out to me, especially since you were so curious about how young people are involved in Flint's future.
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to see that firsthand.
Well, the council talked about this new youth center they're building.
Oh, right. And I remember from that podcast, it's actually going to be in a neighborhood that's been hit pretty hard economically.
Yeah, and get this, the youth themselves actually spearheaded the whole project.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right, it's like they're not just waiting for someone else to fix things, they're taking charge.
That's so inspiring. What kind of stuff did they do?
Well, they came up with the idea themselves. They presented it to the council. They even raised a bunch of money through fundraising.
Wow, so they really went above and beyond.
Totally.
Right.
And the council obviously recognized their dedication because they approved the funding for it.
That's amazing. They're not just inheriting Flint's legacy, they're creating their own.
Exactly. And that's just one example. There's a bunch of stuff happening downtown, too.
Oh, yeah, downtown Flint. What's going on there?
So you know how a lot of Rust Belt cities have those struggling downtowns?
Yeah, sadly, it's kind of a familiar story.
Right. Well, Flint is really trying to change that narrative. And there was this one detail in the minutes that I loved. They're taking this area that's kind of underutilized right now, and they're turning it into this big pedestrian plaza.
Oh, wow, that
Yeah.
sounds awesome. Like a European-style plaza.
Exactly. They're going to have outdoor seating, a little stage for performances, even a designated dog park area.
Oh, no way, a dog park downtown. I'm sold.
Right. It just sounds so lively and welcoming.
It really does. And it's so smart, because it's not just about making the city look nicer. It's about creating a space for people to come together.
Exactly. Giving them a reason to actually hang out downtown. Rebuild that sense of community.
It's like they're not just rebuilding a city, they're rebuilding a community.
And that's what I hope you take away from this deep dive more than anything. Flint is a city that's constantly evolving, redefining itself.
Yeah, it's definitely not frozen in time.
Not at all. And while you'll see reminders of the struggles it's been through, you'll also encounter this really palpable sense of resilience and innovation and hope.
I love that. It's like they're not shying away from their past, but they're not letting it define them either.
Exactly. So go into this trip with your eyes open, your ears tuned, and be ready to be surprised by what you discover.
I will. Flint, here I come. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Flint, Michigan. We'll be back next week with another fascinating journey, so stay tuned.